Let's make sure that you know the terminology from the key concept. Remember that adjacent angles mean that angles are next to each other. Supplementary angles add up to be 180 degrees. Complementary angles add up to be 90 degrees. And vertical angles are across from each other, okay? And they are also the same measure. All right, now let's take a look and answer questions 4 through 6. Question 4 says to list 2 pairs of adjacent angles. Instead of just limiting it to 2 pairs, let's name all of them. Adjacent angles, remember, are next to each other. So angle 1 and angle 2, angle 2 and angle 3, angle 3 and angle 4, angle 4 and angle 5, and angle 5 and angle 1. You have 5 pairs of adjacent angles. Number 5, list all pairs of vertical angles. Well, in this case, remember, vertical angles are across from each other. There is only one pair of vertical angles, angle 1 and angle 3. The other pairs might be across from each other, but they don't share the same 2 rays. If angle 1 and 3 are the same measure, which they are because they're vertical, what is the value of x? Well, in this case, 9x equals 90. So we're going to divide both sides by 9, and x must be equal to 10. Okay, remember, the same measure, those vertical angles are equal, and since angle 1 is 9x and angle 3 is 90, we can say 9x must be the same as 90, and therefore x is 10. Now I'd like for you to try questions 7 through 12 on page 439. When you're done answering 7 through 12, come back and check your answers for each one of them, and then we'll move on to the next set of work. In question 7, angle X and angle Z are adjacent to angle W. For question 8, there are actually 4 different pairs of adjacent angles. Remember that an angle is named using the rays and the vertex point. In this case, the vertex point is O. It's where all of the angles meet. In order for angles to be adjacent, they have to share a single ray. So angle KOL, for example, is adjacent to angle LOM. Angle LOM is adjacent to angle MON. Okay, all of those pairs are adjacent. But you also can look at this from a bigger perspective. Angle KOM, this big angle here, is adjacent to angle MON. Okay, so this big angle is adjacent to this angle here. And angle KOL, the short angle here, is adjacent to LON, which is the bigger angle out here. So we have all sorts of relationships here with adjacent angles in this picture. Now let's look at number 9. In question 9, we are asked to find the value of x, which is right here inside angle LJG. What you might notice is that that angle, along with 2 others, creates this line right here, the one labeled LJW. And because all of those fall along a straight line, and a straight line has 180 degrees, then that must mean that the total of those 3 angles is also 180. And we know that when we put those 3 angles together, 9x plus, did you see the right angle here? That little corner. And plus the third angle, which is 18, you should get a total of 180. So to simplify this expression here, we're going to add together or put together our like terms. So 90 and 18 make 108. So we have 9x plus 108 equals 180. And then we're going to finish solving that by taking away 108 from both sides. And 9x equals 72. So in order to finish solving that, we divide both sides by 9, and therefore x has to be 8. So the value of x there is 8. In question 10, finding the value of x means finding the value of x since those angles are vertical angles. We know that they are equal. So 125 is equal to 5x plus 30. Okay, since those two angles are equal, we can put those two expressions equal to each other and then solve this like a two-step problem for x. So subtracting 30 from both sides will give us a value of 95 on the left and 5x on the right. Now we're going to divide both sides by 5 to find that x has to be equal to 19. Question 11 gives us a picture of two angles that are complementary. Tells us that the measure of angle 1 is 42 degrees and the measure of angle 2 is 3x degrees. So we're going to add those two measures together and their sum should be 90. Now we're going to solve for x. Solving for x is solving this two-step equation. So subtract 42 from both sides. 3x then must be equal to, start to borrow if you need to, 48. And in order to solve that, we're going to divide both sides by 3. So x equals 16. Now let's look at number 12. Two streets form an intersection. Angle C and angle D are supplementary angles. If the measure of angle C is 128 degrees and the measure of angle D is 2 times the value of x, what is the value of x? Well, don't forget that when you add together supplementary angles, the total must be 180. So by adding up angle C plus angle D, we should get 180 degrees. And again, we're going to solve this by solving a two-step equation. So first, take away 128 from each side, and you should get a value of 52. Then divide both sides by 2, because I don't want the value of 2x, I just want the value of x. And when you divide 52 by 2, you get 26. So the value of x is 26. For the last few problems, we're going to solve these together. Number 13, if angle A and angle B are supplementary angles, and angle A is 3 times as large as angle B, find the measures of angle A and B. So we know supplementary means that they are going to add up to be 180 degrees. What we also know is angle A is 3 times angle B. So we'll call angle B, B, and we'll call angle A 3 times B. And together, they still equal 180 because they're supplementary. But we can combine our like terms here. 3 B's and another B make a total of 4B. And that means that when I divide by 4, the measure of angle B has to be 180 divided by 4, or 45 degrees. Now, how do I find the measure of angle A? Well, it tells us in the problem that angle A is equal to 3 times angle B. So angle A must be 3 times 45, which means angle A is equal to 135 degrees. Now let's look at number 14. The measure of angle DBE, it's this angle right here, is 1/10 x minus 22. And the measure of CBE, which is this angle right here, is equal to 3/10 x minus 54. Find the value of x. Now what you might notice here is that these two angles together make a right angle. You see that box right here in the corner that indicates it's a right angle. So by adding together those two measures, oops, let me try that again. Their total should be 90. So we can do our combined like terms. Okay, so first let's put together our number terms. So when I subtract 22 and I subtract 54, altogether I have subtracted 76. And then when I put together my variable terms, 1/10 x and 3/10 x makes 4/10 x. And again, that still equals 90 degrees. So now we've got a two-step problem. And to solve that, we're going to add 76 to both sides. So 4/10 x on the right equals 166 on the left. Next, divide both sides by 4/10. Because remember, we want the value of x. So to do that, we need to divide both sides. And 166 divided by 4/10 is 415. So the value of x is 415. Now let's skip down to the last two problems in the assessment practice section. Take a look at number 16 and see if you can solve number 16 to correctly find the measure of angle B. Angle B should measure 35 degrees because angle B plus the 55-degree angle make a right angle, which is 90. So these two angles are complementary. So what do you suppose that Martin did to incorrectly get the measure of angle B at 125 degrees? What was his likely mistake? Well, in this case, my guess is that Martin thought that the angles were supplementary, and he subtracted 55 from 180 instead of from 90, because 180 take away 55 would be 125 degrees. And last, let's take a look at number 17. In the diagram at the right, the measure of angle 1 is 133 minus y degrees. The measure of angle 2 is 22 degrees. And the measure of angle 3 is x plus 48 degrees. Find the values of x and y. Well, in this problem, we have to look just a little bit beyond the entire diagram and look at the box. The box here in angle 1 tells me that 133 minus y must be 90 degrees. So the question is, what can I subtract from 133 in order to get 90? Well, in this case, let's turn this around into a fact family, because 133 take away 90 must be the value of y. So what is the value of y in this problem? Y must be equal to 43. Next, let's take a look at angles 2 and 3. Angles 2 and 3 must also be 90 degrees because the only way to get a straight line here for all the angles together is if they all total 180. And if part of that right here is already 90, then the other part must also be 90. So you can use the relationship that angle 2 and angle 3 are also complementary angles in order to find the measure of angle x. So 22 plus x plus 48 must be equal to 90 degrees as well. And by combining your like terms first, you get x plus 70 equals 90, and then solve by subtracting 70 from both sides. And x must be 20. Now you're ready to try some problems on your own.